那这边大家可以看到，这是今天我们讲座的流程以及大纲。那首先会由我来进行开场，那接下来呢，会有半个小时的时间，会有我们Learning A-Z 特别邀请的国际课程顾问Jason General 先生来帮我们分享。那再来就是针对我们讲师第一部分的一些 Q&A 时间。接下来呢，会有我们的第二位讲师 Peggy 来帮我们分享教育部数位精进计划的一些相关资讯，包含如何申请的注意事项等等的内容。那最后呢，还是有就是 Peggy 讲师的这边 Q&A 时间，然后还有我们就是这次也很重要，非常感谢老师们完整参与我们这场讲座，会有一个超神秘好礼的时间。那首先呢，要跟大家介绍一下今天的两位讲师。那第一位讲师是我们的Learning A-Z 特邀讲师 Jason General 李先生。那他曾经担任过美国的任课老师以及管理人员，大约长达15年的时间，以及也在10多年的期间呢，担任过120多所学校的首席学术长。那待会他是我们第一个部分的讲师，那因为有时差的关系，那可能他在帮我们分享结束之后就会先行离开。第二位讲师呢是我们的Peggy老师，那他是我们高级新双语的教育顾问，曾经获得美国波士顿科学博物馆的这个认证STEM课程的高级讲师。好，那接下来呢，我们就紧接着就来到了我们第一 part 的分享时间。那现在就把这个时间交给我们的第一位讲师 ，Let's welcome Jason.
Hello, I think that was my welcome right there. And Leo, I just want to make sure as far as timing, I will have until, is it 10 minutes after the hour? Is that the time frame that we have here for me? Leo, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. I believe it was 20 minutes after the hour. So
20 minutes.
Roughly about 40 minutes. So yeah, take it away whenever you can. And then, yeah, so about 40 minutes.
Okay, got it. Wanted to make sure I had that correct. So right now, Leo, give me a thumbs up. You can see my screen. Perfect, perfect. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. And it's wonderful to be with you today. Today, it's my night. I'm coming from the United States, so I'm at 12:30 a.m. Just after midnight here. But it's wonderful to be with you today. Today, what I will be doing briefly, as they already stated, is we'll be using data to drive instruction today. And basically what I'm going to do is I will be utilizing Learning A-Z resources, RazPlus specifically, to show you how you may connect resources and connect data. And it was really nice to see the video with all of the RazPlus products in the classroom at work. That was a lot of fun. This is basically what we want to do. We want to inspire curiosity. We want to ensure comprehension for your students while still instilling the joy of learning for your elementary students. And as I know that I was introduced, I have spent a number of years in the classroom. I actually started as a chief academic officer when we utilized RazPlus in all of our schools. That's how I got to know RazPlus. And so I'll be showing you some of those tips and tricks as far as resources and data and how it really helped our teachers in the classroom. But what we will do today is we will talk about how RazPlus can help you connect your resources. And ultimately, when I say connect resources, I'm also talking about the foundational skill connections that our international classrooms are in such dire need of. And we have 55,000 resources with RazPlus. And so I'm going to show you how to really search for resources to pinpoint exactly what you need. And of course, after we show you how to do that, we'll talk about how to utilize the data that RazPlus provides for you to help you drive your instruction. And we do this in a number of different ways with all types of formative types of assessments. And I'll show you some examples of that. And when we talk about using data to drive instruction, of course, once we find exactly what we want to teach, that is our instruction that we can model. And I'll briefly show you how you can model instruction. And then from that modeling of instruction, how to assign resources for student practice. And then, of course, we assess those resources with all types of formative assessments. And it shows up in our data reporting tool. It's an automated digital data reporting tool that also allows you to see that formative assessment data that is critical in terms of student annotations, what they know, what you can hear as a teacher, etc. And then from there, I'll also show you in our brief amount of time today how you can store and prioritize your resources utilizing the digital file cabinets. And that will come in really handy, especially when you're using data to drive instruction. Now, as it was pointed out to me, I am not Janessa generally, as my name states there. That is my wife. That has popped up today, but I am Jason generally, not Janessa, so that we can understand that. When we talk about RazPlus, what does RazPlus do in a nutshell? Well, it's a mobile online platform that you can also use to print resources and project and model instruction in the classroom. So we call it anytime, anywhere resources. And I'll show you how you can use those projectables to model instruction as well today. Okay, let's get started. Let's start out with the very beginning. So when we talk about RazPlus and connecting data to drive instruction, what's really important to know is how to connect resources, understand how resources are connected, from language comprehension skills to foundational skills resources. And then once we understand how those are connected, how we connect the data that RazPlus provides. And very briefly, when I talk about foundational skills, I'm a visual person. So when I talk about foundational skills, I think it's really important to tie two elements together that you are asked to tie together in the classroom every day. And so what you are seeing here on the screen at the very top, these are those foundational skills that you are teaching every day. And on the bottom are those language comprehension skills that are so critical to understanding, comprehending text. Now, when we talk about word recognition, we're talking about, of course, decoding and encoding, phonological, phonemic awareness, sight recognition, etc. What's really hard for teachers today, and really at any time, but what is really hard for teachers is to tie these foundational skills to the language comprehension skills in a very effective, efficient manner. And I'll show you how to do that very briefly. So when we're talking about tying together foundational skills and language comprehension, what am I meaning? Well, here are the 5 essential components of literacy. And very briefly, everything you see above that black line are those foundational skills that I mentioned: decoding, encoding, etc. And everything you see below that black line are those language comprehension skills, where we can help you tie in vocabulary, comprehension, etc. Now, it's really important here. The reason I'm showing you this is because I can show you how to jump right into the data. But what's really important is to understand how we can break the data down for you into these specific skills of foundational and language comprehension skills. So as an example, if we want to find very specific resources that relate to specific foundational skills and language comprehension, an example is this. Let's just say that you're a grade 1 teacher, okay? And as a grade 1 teacher, maybe you are being asked to teach the specific phonics skill of the long eval digraph. And let's say you want to find one anchor text that can help you do that, as well as teach the grammar skill of capitalization and punctuation specifically. And let's also say when it comes to language comprehension skills, you'd like to find one resource that covers the comprehension skill of sequence of events. And I don't care what grade level you teach, whether it's kindergarten or grade 6, you are being asked to teach the comprehension skill of sequence of events. So this would apply to all of us. And let's also say, because you have all the time in the world, that you are also being asked to cover maybe science as part of your literacy block, maybe something specifically catering to biology. And so let's say we want to find one anchor text that can give us data for all of these skills and yet we want to model the instruction using one anchor text. And then we want to assign resources that cover these specific skills so that we can accumulate that data, okay? So first things first, let's figure out how to connect resources, connect foundational and language comprehension skills to very specific skills, to a text that we can model, use to model instruction. So what might that look like? Okay, so let me jump right into the live site. Now, when I say that we have 55,000 resources, for those of you that don't know, they are located underneath this resource tab. And here's where you will find things like the foundational skills that I had mentioned, as well as those language comprehension skills that are so important, along with vocabulary, writing, and word work. And then, of course, those books that you know all too well, probably, that RazPlus has to offer. Okay, so if we want to cover something very specifically, like these skills to model instruction, how can we search using those 55,000 resources in a very effective, efficient manner? Well, to get back to our resources, you can start with this little magnifying glass. And this is how I suggest that you search. It's a new search engine that's about 1.5 to 2 years old. And so if you select that magnifying glass, it will pull up some kind of search engine like this.
Hey, Jason, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Not at
I
all.
think we're still looking at the PowerPoint slides. I don't know if you were
Oh,
switching to
no,
the live.
I am. Thank you very much. So let me go ahead and, for your sake, let me minimize this. And let me try to, oh, it's holding. Okay, I'm going to have to do this the hard way. Give me one moment. Let me share again. I don't typically use this platform to share. And so
I'm happy to drive if I'm able to share.
well,
But yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay. You can go ahead and
Yeah.
I guess we can stop presenting and then you can drive for me. We'll just go back and forth and make this work. Yeah, it's
Sure.
holding on this PowerPoint. I apologize. Let me stop presenting. We'll just do it this way. All right. So right now you're seeing my live screen, correct, Leo?
Okay, now, perfect.
Okay. All right. So getting back to the point, I was pointing to this little magnifying glass, which you could not see at the time. So when I'm talking about resources, and thank you, Leo, for pointing it out, here are where our 55,000 resources are stored. Going back to how you search, if I go back to my little magnifying glass here, this is how you can search for resources. So if you recall modeling instruction using those specific resources, what you can do is you can, under skills, you can go to something like your phonics instruction. And this is where we can find under lessons and skills, we can filter out just those long eval diagraphs that I had mentioned, specifically the long E. I've already filtered that out to save us time. But we also talked about searching for grammar resources. So I can search for grammar mechanics, and under lessons and skills, I can find capitalization and punctuation and continue to filter those out. So if I went live, I could filter out the comprehension skill. If you can recall, it was specifically sequence of events. And everything you're seeing here are those skills that you're being asked to teach throughout the year. So if I select sequence of events, you can see that I've already filtered out of my 55,000 resources, I have roughly 1,693 resources left. To go through this a little faster, let's say I wanted to find something related to science, right? Biology. And so I could find a nonfiction resource specifically catering to in content area to science, and I could find something related to biology. So if I scroll back up to the top, now you can see out of 55,000 resources, I have 55, okay? And now based on that 55, that might be too many. So one last thing I could do is I could actually search I suggest by searching by Lexile or by learning A to Z level. I don't suggest you search by grade level. For instance, if you're a grade 4 teacher, chances are that even in your grade 4 classroom, your students may not be reading at a grade 4 level. It's challenging. So if you know your students' Lexile, you can search by Lexile, or you can search by Learning A to Z level. And if you search by Learning A to Z level, we do have 29 differentiated sets of resources ranging from AA all the way to Z2. And so let's say I wanted to find a level F, which would be roughly a grade 1 resource. Well, now out of 55,000, I have 14, okay? So what I'm going to do, maybe this will allow me to do it. Nope, it still won't. That's okay. We'll do it the hard way, which is okay. So if I want to model instruction using that specific resource, I could find maybe this food chain resource in English. And if I pulled that resource up, it would look like this as far as my home page. And I can model instruction here. So if I scroll down just to show you that I'm telling the truth, underneath teach the objectives, remember that we searched by the comprehension skill of sequence of events. So I have explicit instruction in the form of worksheets, projectables to teach sequence of events with this resource. I'm teaching the phonics skill of the long eval digraph specifically with this resource. And with this resource, we're covering grammar and mechanics skills of capitalization and punctuation specifically. And if I scroll back up here to the projectables for this entire resource, if I select this, it would allow me to model instruction with my classroom. And this is what that projectable would look like. And again, if you have a smart board or even a projector, simple projector, you can do this. And so if I scroll to a page, you can see that this particular resource, because I filtered it out accordingly, is filled with things like the long E-vowel digraph, those E-E-E-A long vowel digraphs. And so maybe as I model instruction, I can hand my mouse around to students, or I can do this myself as the teacher, but I could ask the students, what is a long E-vowel digraph that you see? And I can have them highlight the long E-vowel digraphs that they see. That's great. What does that word say? That says need. We're also covering the grammar skills of capitalization and punctuation. So as the teacher, or I could hand my mouse around to students in the classroom, we could, with a blue pen, cross through those first letters of the capitalized word in each sentence for capitalization. Maybe with a red pen, we would like to circle all of the end of sentence punctuation. And if they circle something like a comma, that's great. We can make mistakes and we can address those mistakes, and we can even erase those and address why a comma is not an end of sentence punctuation. So there are all kinds of annotative tools that you can utilize to model instruction in the classroom that specifically caters to these skills, as well as you can see, explicit instruction for these skills as well. So again, when we're searching for very specific skills and we want to model instruction, this is an easy way to do that, okay? All right. Along with that, when I say connecting resources, we also have all kinds of resources in the forms of decodables that you can see here under the phonological awareness, phonics, and fluency. If I select lessons and decodables, I can select something like the long E-vowel digraph. And you can see here's the decodable, the bee, and the flea. Now, we are a digital tool, but it's important to allow our students to play, get their hands dirty, and collaborate. So you can see we have all types of activities for students to utilize in the classroom as well, or even resources that you can assign if you wish. And as I scroll to the bottom, again, one last form of connecting resources. Underneath related books, if you scroll down to the bottom of every page, you'll see that related books. And you can see here I have sound symbol books, the long eval digraph. I have a read aloud, we need a vacation. And that sound symbol book looks like this, that shared read or that read aloud. We also have things like shared readings that cater to that long eval digraph. And then even daily language practice skills. And if you recall, we're focused on the capitalization and punctuation at the end of sentences. And you can see this is a week's worth of capitalization and punctuation resources that you may utilize. So when we're talking about connecting resources to very specific skills, this is one way that you can do that. And if you wanted to assign any resources, you may certainly do that, getting into our data and how you are able to find data with your students, the data that is digitally populated, and even equally important, the formative assessment tools that you can gain based on the annotative tools that students may utilize when you do assign resources, okay? All right, so with that being said, I'm going to have to stop presenting and then present again, Leo. I think is how I'll have to do this, which is okay.
Looks it, but I'm sure it's a small task to overcome. But at the meantime, teachers, if there's any question for the RazPlus program, please do feel free to leave your question in the chat. And also just FYI, in case you are interested to explore in the program, we can also help you with a trial access as well. So just like to leave that comment so that it's a public information.
Thank you, Leo. And that was a perfect filler and segue into the next steps. All right, so the next steps is actually using the data from the resource, from the RazPlus resource, to help you drive instruction. So I'm going to show you not just the data, but other types of data that you should be gleaning from the resources that you might assign. So what do I mean by that? I'm talking about the formative assessments that you can receive. So when I say formative, you, the teacher, is the most important resource in the classroom, okay? So what you are hearing, what you are seeing is the most important thing. Of course, the digital data that you are receiving from the comprehension quizzes, etc., are very important. But what you see and what you hear is equally important. So what do I mean by that? So let me show you something as far as the resources are concerned. And what I'm going to do is stop sharing. Then I'm going to share again. This is an interesting thing that it makes you do, but you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way, and we can figure this out as well. All right, so I'm going to share my screen now. And now, Leo, hopefully you're seeing my live RazPlus site. So
you got it made, man.
Perfect, perfect. So what you are looking at right now is actually the student view. Whenever you assign a resource from RazPlus, this is what it would look like for your student. And what your student should be doing is using the annotative tools, the recording tools, elements that far exceed just the simple digital data that is received from answering the quizzes. All right, now that's really important. But before we get to the digital data, what do I mean by those annotative tools and recording tools for your students? Well, you see this little triangle at the very top of the screen. If your student selects that triangle, there will be a drop down. And in that drop down, students can record themselves reading this particular resource. And so if I scroll through the resource, this is what that resource might look like. And when I get to this page, maybe it's a decodable or an entire resource that I assign, students can record themselves. So why is that important? Of course, this is where you can monitor fluency for students. You can even have them answer questions verbally as they are reading the text as well with this recording tool. There's also this little annotative tool here with this drawing tool jar. If I select that drawing tool jar, if you recall these tools that I utilized as the teacher to model instruction, whenever the student is assigned a resource, they may utilize all of those annotative tools as well. So when you assign this, you probably will want them just to check for those formative assessments. You can have them with this resource highlight all of those long eval diagrams that they see within the resource. Maybe you want to have them mark through any capitalized letters that they see of the first word in each sentence. Maybe with a red pen, you want them to circle all of the end of sentence punctuation that they see within this resource. Maybe, as far as the student is concerned, they might even come across certain things like sunlight. And they see sunlight and they can hover over that word and they can select it. And if they don't understand it, they can hear that word being read to them. Sunlight. Hopefully you could hear that, Leo, on your laptop as well. Perfect. Maybe you want this student, they can add this to their word journal. They can even write reflections. And you can see here I have one written from September 20th for the food chain that I've already done. Long story short, there are a number of things that students should be utilizing to help you gather those really critical formative assessment pieces, whether it's them recording themselves or whether it's them using the annotative tools so that you can ensure or try to ensure that students understand that modeled instruction that you utilized in the classroom. Okay, so that is one element of data that you may use. The other one is when they finish the resource, they may utilize or you may issue comprehension quizzes. Everything that happens from those comprehension quizzes will feed right into your automated digital data reporting tool. Now, what does that digital data reporting tool look like? Well, if you go to let me start here. Just to go up to the top, you'll see Manage Students. And underneath Manage Students, you'll see something called a report. If you select that report, it will pull up a page that looks like this. And this is where you can really dig into a lot of data. So as an example, what I have done is I've selected the skills. Now, right now, you don't see any skills populated. If I selected a date range, let's say that I've been working on the long eval diagram and I've been working on capitalization and punctuation for the last week or two. I should filter out my data, my date range for that week or those 2 weeks of instruction. So I can make sure, do they understand what I've been trying to teach over this specific period of time? What I'm going to do is simply select all so that you can see a wide range of data that is provided. The first thing that you see here is this show first attempt only. I like to toggle this on as a teacher because this is where I can see how the students did, of course, on their first attempt, not on their second, third, or fourth try if we allow them to take that many chances, okay? So here is my digital data. And you can see as I scroll down very slowly, you can see a number of comprehension skills. You can see a number of foundational skill elements that have been taught or that have been completed by the student. If I go to here to sequence of events, maybe this is the skill that we would like to focus on. Now, what you are seeing right now is a classroom snapshot. This is my entire class. And what you're seeing to the right is a very simple color code, all right, when it comes to data that we provide. Red means as a class, this class is really struggling with that skill. Yellow means as a class, we're getting there, but not quite yet. And green means, yeah, our class is high flying. Now, what's important to me as a teacher is how individual students are doing, right? So to see how individual students are doing, you would simply select the skill to receive that data. So if I select sequence of events, it would pull up my entire class roster. Now, this is some dummy data that I have from my resources. And so I only have 2 students, whopping class, right? You would have here your 20, 25 students, etc. in your classroom. And what you can see here at the top, I can email my parents any kind of digital data report that I wish. I can print these out for my records, and I can also download these to my own laptop for my records. Now, there are a number of different levels that you can see here with the digital data and that your parents can see as well. If I select, as an example, and let me go back to the skills. If I select that skill, sequence of events, and from here, if I select the individual student, I can see the individual quizzes that that student has taken. And if I scroll down here a little bit, you can see something like a 2 out of 3 for this particular resource. Now you say, wow, Jason, there were only 3 questions on the comprehension quiz. No, what we have done is we have filtered out sequence of events. So these are all of the sequence of events questions for the resource that I have assigned. So as I select that particular 2 out of 3, it will then pull up, as far as data is concerned, all of those individual questions that pertain specifically to sequence of events. Now think about how you can go through this resource with your students individually, or you can go through these resources as an entire class, just filtering out these skills and going over these as a review, if you will. So we can drill down that far if you wish. And again, at any point, we can email parents the whole report, or we can email them the specific elements as we wish. So this is the skill report, all right? This is the data that we provide. Now, what's really important is, now that we have this data, what can we do with this data, or what should we do with this data? Well, as an example, what you should do with it is, with sequence of events, we will have specific students that are struggling, or maybe the entire class is struggling. So how can we use data to drive instruction? Well, the next step would be, as an example with sequence of events, you could scroll back up to your main page, and underneath resources, we could go to the comprehension skill drawer. And as an example, underneath comprehension, again, utilizing data to drive further instruction, I could go to the comprehension skill specifically of sequence of events. Maybe our classroom as a whole is struggling, or maybe just specific students. And I can cover this maybe within some small group station rotation work with those students. If I select this particular one, I've selected a grade 1 resource as an example. Let me go back up to the top and talk about the grade level. Again, if you're a grade 4 teacher and your students are struggling at the grade 4 level, let's issue some appropriate grade level assignments, okay, for some intervention tactics. And so if I scroll down to this particular resource, I will select sequence of events. And so now think about that instructional cycle. We have modeled instruction with sequence of events using our projectable. We have assigned a resource with our digital tools, and then we have assigned a comprehension quiz that's given us data for sequence of events. And so now, based on my assessments, I know which students are following, or which students are comprehending that particular skill, or they're understanding that skill. And now I know if I need to use some kind of intervention resources for small groups of students, or if an entire class needs to revisit that resource. This is what I can do. So if I scroll down for this sequence of events resource, you'll see that I can assign this or carry out instruction with the entire class, or use it as a small group station rotation resource. And so you can see I have a model passage, and because we're just focused on sequence of events, they're very short passages, right? I have a practice passage that I can assign to small groups. I have an independent practice passage, and even a second one if I need that. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to just use this as independent practice. You can model this and use it for small group instruction as well. But you can see here that this even comes with things like interactivities. So after reading this particular resource, it's simply asking me to place how to wash clean hands, how to wash my hands. What order does it give me within the text, within that small text, to wash my hand, to cover the sequence of events comprehension skill? And you can even see for the teacher at the very top, I can toggle on show correct answers. So as the teacher, I can have a cheat sheet that I can even utilize to make sure that what I am saying is correct, or if I don't have time to read through the resource, I have this as well. Okay. To go back out to my resources, let me stop sharing, and then let me share my, there we go. All right, Leo, give me a thumbs up. I said, well, there's a will, there's a way. Can you see my screen again. Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So now what we've done is we've understood, hopefully, how we can connect resources with RazPlus, and not just connect one resource to a skill, but connect multiple skills to one model text. And then how we can use explicit instruction based on that model text through an assign feature, or even sharing in the classroom with small group station rotation work or whole class. Then we know what we can do after we've assigned a resource, what we can utilize as far as the data, and how we can utilize that data to drive instruction. The last thing that I'd like to talk about is, once we find a resource, how can we store and prioritize that resource so that we don't have to go trying to find resources again? And we can even share resources with other teachers, or we can share with an entire school if we wish, or multiple schools. So what you have is a digital file cabinet. And I know I have about 7 minutes left here, Leo, so I'll try to cover this quickly as well. We're doing a lot. Hopefully it makes some sense. So how can we store and prioritize 55,000 resources? Well, what you can do is use the digital file cabinet. And if I stop sharing and I get back into my live resource again, here we go. Now you're seeing my live site again. Let's see. Let's go back to, I don't have to go anywhere. No matter what page I'm on, I have this file cabinet ribbon that you can see at the top. If I select the file cabinet, it will take me to a page that maybe looks like this. All right. Don't judge my folders. This is just what I've called my folders, okay? I call them my treasure chest. That's where I put my literacy treasures, my resources. All right. What I've done is I would suggest assigning file cabinets by grade level, okay? That way you can have all of your grade 1 teachers or all of your grade 5 teachers sharing the same file cabinet. So what I've done, I have my grade 1 treasure chest. And if I open my grade 1 treasure chest, you can see I have a number of file folders. I have phonics folders, I have sight words, reading workshops, writing workshops, phonological awareness, vocabulary, all kinds of folders, okay? Maybe you have a scope and sequence in your school, as an example. I had one that asked me a few months ago, hey, Jason, I love the file folders. Can you utilize our scope and sequence and organize our first month of resources to help show us how we can effectively and efficiently store and prioritize what's important to us and our curriculum? Well, one thing that I did, I created here my grade 1 term 1 for August. And inside that, here are all of those things, those specific skills that were covered in their curriculum. And here under long vowel digraphs, if I go to long vowel E, this should look familiar to you, right? We just covered these. So what I did is it took me for the first month, it took me about an hour to cover their first month of resources. That's not long, right? Well, it doesn't take me long because I know how to find resources using the search engine. And once I found the resources, I plugged them into my file cabinets that I created. So here's my model text, the food chain for the long E vowel digraph. Here is my shared reading, the fuzzy buzzy B. Here is my sound symbol book, the long E vowel digraph. Here is my read aloud, we need a vacation, and even my decodable that I can assign the B and the flee. And remember, we talked about grammar skills, capitalization and punctuation. I even put my week's worth of capitalization and punctuation resources within that same file folder. If I go back, you should be asking the question, that's great, Jason, but how do I put these resources in my file cabinet? Well, you can see I have an add to feature. So if I select the add to feature, this is where I can put these resources in any of those file cabinets that I have created. And there's my long E, and I can add this to my long E vowel digraph folder. Very simple. And if I scroll down, even you can see that for explicit instruction, I can add these explicit instruction resources, in this case, the comprehension skill for sequence of events, and I can add that to my file cabinet and insert that into my sequence of events file folder. I did say that you may share these folders as well. This is really important so that you don't have to constantly reinvent the wheel. So how can you share resources? If I go back into my file cabinet, where did I put my file cabinet? You know what? It doesn't matter. Let's go back to my file cabinet this way. If I go back to my files, what I can do, you see these three little bubbles at the top? If I select those bubbles, I can share. And when I select share, it gives me three options. So what those three options mean, if I select share with district, what that means is maybe you have multiple schools, sister schools, maybe you have 5 campuses. You can share with all of your teachers and you can share by grade level. You can share your file folders out with all of your schools, giving you a consistent bank of resources that your teachers can utilize that follows your curriculum. Maybe you want to just share with one individual school and you want all your teachers to have access to these file folders and maybe that are sorted by grade level. Or maybe you just want to share with teachers. Maybe you have a grade level cohort. Maybe you have some a group of close friends that you like to share your resources with. You can share that way. Now, the whole time, the last thing I'll talk about, you do have the autonomy to populate your own file folders. So what you can do is you can simply select new folder. And when you select new folder, that folder is uniquely yours. You have your own types of resources you like to use. You have some fun things, activities that you do in your classroom that you like to do every year. Create your own file folders that no one else can utilize, and that's great. The only time that other people will be able to see or share your resources is if you choose to do so with the share feature. With that being said, you see all these little people on my file folder? You can probably guess that that means I am sharing this file folder out. If I create a file folder and I'm not sharing it, all of these little people will not show. That way you know which folders you're sharing and which ones that you are not. So to conclude, if I stop presenting and I share my screen one more time to go back to conclude with this, and hopefully this is all making sense as I'm going back and forth. Right now, you should be seeing my PowerPoint again. So what we have done today are hopefully 4 things that make sense. We've talked about the 55,000 resources within RazPlus 1. We've talked about how to connect very specific skills with a plethora with many other resources that deal with that specific skill and even model instruction with multiple skills in those resource connections. We've shown you how you can even apply foundational skills resources to your language comprehension skill resources so that you can cover multiple skills with one anchor text. And then we've shown you, once you assign that resource, how you can utilize the data, not just the digital data, but also the formative assessment data that you are receiving through the annotative tools and the recorded options that your students have. And then finally, once you've found the resources that you really love and you think would really work with your curriculum year after year, store and prioritize those resources in your digital file cabinet. It helps you save so much time, hopefully making your life a little bit more effective and a little bit more efficient. Okay. That was a lot, Leo. I hope it made sense, and I hope it was impactful for the teachers to help make their lives a little bit more effective and efficient with not only the data, but how to find specific resources that cater to the specific data, the data points that they are required. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing now, Leo. Stop presenting and open this up to questions or follow-ups that you might have, Leo, because of course I don't ever cover everything and you'll think of some things that are really important as well. Thank you. Thanks, Leo. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. I think I will hand the floor back to Zoe with today's agenda, but thank you for your presentation and sharing with our teachers in the schools in Taiwan, with the teachers in schools in Taiwan. Especially appreciate you doing this in your time zone very late in the evening with your host voice. So double appreciation on that. So definitely appreciate that. Thank you very much. Zoe, do we have time for Q&A, or if we can proceed with the next agenda, I'll leave it for your direction.
Okay, thank you. 请问各位老师有针对刚刚我们 Jason 顾问的这个分享有什么任何问题吗？那欢迎在聊天室里面提出。那如果没有的话，我们就不要让Jason老师熬夜，我们就让他就是先离开。
那 Zoe 如果可以这边分享一点点小小的相关的分享的话哈，就是我们的这个 RazPlus 的这个里面里头有大概2600本的这个分级的读物，所以我们在学校里面的小朋友，不管他的英语阅读的能力是在什么技巧的话，其实在这个系统上面都有非常多的资源可以让小朋友在他课余的时间课外的时间自由阅读。那刚才 Jason 也跟我们的在场的老师们分享到，就是说在我们的平台上面可以达到就是用这个 assignment 的方式分派作业给学生，或者在班级里面在教室里头可以直接上课。所以学生呢，他们可以在教室里面使用啦，或者是课余的时间自由的阅读都可以。那老师们他们可以看到，就是所有学生的这个阅读的这一个活动的相关的这个讯息跟这个数据这样子。那我想更重要的一点，特别要分享的是，因为这些阅读的分级读物是一个非常好的 supplementary。因为我们班级里面每位老师都有这个固定的课程，那作为这个辅助的这个教学或者是课外阅读的话，我们这个产品最多的老师的反馈就是他在做这个 supplementary 的时候是特别的就是给力的特别有力道的这一个服务这样子。那刚才最后呢 Jason 他分享到的这个file folders 呢，真的是老师的老师跟我们分享过，就是真的是福音。因为比如说有一位老师，他如果说是今年是教2年级，那明年他还是在教2年级，或者是说有教到2年级的话，那他存下来的这一些课程，在这个平台上面存下来的这些书啦都可以就是保留下来，那明年可以继续使用，甚至是分享给其他同一个年级的老师，所以节省很多的时间。那我想这个部分是很多老师给我们 feedback， 就是他们用过之后真的是非常实用，而且省力省时的一个工具这样子。所以在此如果老师对这个产品有什么问题，或者是需要做一个 trial access 的话，那都可以跟我们 Zoe 或者是我们台湾的这个办公室 mangoSTEEM Education 的团队进一步联络。那我们都很希望可以协助老师可以使用到这个 trial access 的内容这样子。所以感谢各位老师。
好的，谢谢 Leo 的分享。那如果老师们没有其他的问题的话，我们就再次感谢 Jason 顾问的分享。Thank you, Jason, and maybe see you next time.
Thank you, Jason. Have a great
Absolutely
evening.
my pleasure. Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
好的，那接下来的时间呢，就是交给我们的Peggy老师，然后他会和我们分享有关于教育部数位经济计划的一些相关资讯。那待会儿的话，我会把就是一些相关的资讯都补充在那个讯息的聊天栏位里面。那有兴趣的老师们可以再参考。那我们就把时间交给Peggy老师。
好，大家都可以看到这个画面吧？ 那好，这个简报呢是教育部的这个资讯说明会的简报。那因为教育部他们通常会公告一些他们说明会的内容，那就是会分厂商的跟学校的。那我今天就学校的角度来跟各位老师说明一下，就是这个教育部这个推动中小学数位精进计划的这个部分。好，那虽然说这个是去年的简报，但是其实内容大概大同小异，只是一些就是日期上的差异。那这个的话，我等一下会进一步说明。那首先呢，就是先介绍老师2个网站，第一个就是这个教育部推动中小学数位学习精进方案的这个网站，上面有非常多的公文，然后还有教育部的公告，比如说各县市要如何申请这个经费，各县市辖区里面的公立的国小、国中、高中等学校的话，要各自如何申请这个经费，然后还有所有的相关的 Q&A 跟条件，这是其中的一个网站。所有的公文相关的活动，比如说像他们最近的一个活动是这个，因为这个教育部的这个数位学习精进方案已经实行了近2年了，所以呢，他们在最近5月的时候有推动这个数位学习绩优的甄选计划的活动。那相关的公文就会在刚刚的网站上，老师们可以去下载来看看要不要申请。那这部分它里面就有提到是有5个大奖项，一个是数位学习办公室，如果贵校有这个承接数位推动办公室的话，那还有就是绩优中小学的学校、绩优中小学的人员，还有绩优领航教师，还有优良的教案。因为针对数位学习来说的话，因为是在正式课本以外的内容，所以都会需要老师们花比较多的心力来自己制作一些教案，或者是各种不同的上课方法。所以这个活动是现在正在进行中。那报名期间是今年的7月15号到7月16号这样。那相关的文件跟公文都在刚刚的这个在这个网站上面可以找到。好，那再来就是呢，另外一个网站呢，就是所有的数位学习内容了。数位学习内容的话呢，会是这个网站，这个网站就是这个教育部数位内容与教学软体的这个网站。老师们在这个网站呢，可以找到所有被教育部选购进去的产品。包含了所有的科别，所有的内容，所以是不分科别的。像我们今天着重在英文教学，但是老师们如果有其他科别需要的话，所有的内容都会在这边。那是有分到数位内容、课堂教学软体，还有远距教学软体。那我们的产品多半是在数位内容部分，因为就像刚刚 Jason 介绍的。平台上面有所有的教学内容教材提供给老师，所以呢这部分算是数位内容的教材。那课堂教学软体的话比较多会是老师们在上课的时候会用到的一些工具系列，远距教学软体也是一样，比较是偏工具类的。那老师们其实只要在这个搜索的地方打上关键字，都可以找到这些产品。好，那再来呢，就是所有的产品里面呢，都会介绍，这个是这个网址 sdc.org.tw， 这是它的网址。那每一个产品呢，都会有它的相关的介绍。那所有跟老师们申请相关的，都会在这个最新消息，它会公告入选名单，会公告一些期限相关的条件，都会在这边。所以这个网站是专门是在这个数位内容的采购部分提供给老师。好，在最新消息下面呢，就像最近是5月10号的时候公告了今年的第一波甄选的所有的产品名单都有介绍。那目前的话呢，这个目前产品的分类就像我刚刚说的，包括各大科目都有，所以老师可以都参考来选购。好，依关键字搜寻等等，或者是厂牌。那如果老师对 RazPlus 有兴趣的话，可以直接在这个搜索这边打 RazPlus， 它就会直接出来了。所以就是依我们的数位内容里面的 RazPlus 就可以直接搜寻。那老师们也可以再进一步的用更详细的条件来找到您想要找的产品。 好，搜索结果出来的话，如果老师直接打 RazPlus， 就会直接是一个 RazPlus 的这个logo在这边，老师直接点进去就可以看到整个产品的介绍了。那就会有产品的序号等等。那这些资料呢，都是提供给老师在填选经费的这个表单，各县市的经费的表单长得不一样。那通常这个据我所知，教育部的这个公告的这个采购的这个流程会寄到学校的资讯组或是媒体组，可以去看看，然后呢问问看。那通常他们收到这些公告之后，就会发 email 给全校，问说有没有老师想要买东西，然后呢要提供他这个产品序号，流水号是厂商报名的这个流水号。那学校采购的话呢，直接用这个产品序号就可以了。所以老师找到我们的产品序号呢，就可以直接直接就是点选选购那样。那再来每一个产品点进去呢，都会有这样子的产品特色、需求规格、产品经验行路的介绍、功能介绍、功能试用等等。那像刚刚 Leo 说的，我们所有的产品都是可以直接申请试用的，只需要输入您的英文名字跟 email 就可以。参考售价也是完全透明，都已经在教育部的网站上，那售价也是透过教育部认可的。然后再来就有联系窗口，跟任何的问题都可以来询问我们。好，那这个就是细节的部分，我直接跳到最后比较多老师会问问题的部分。好，那在 FAQ 这边呢，它会有老师常问的问题，那这边有帮各位整理出来。好，所以呢，第一个问题就是教育部的这个经费是不是只能选购刚刚网站上的名单里面所列的品项？是的，就是呢这个推动中小学数位学习精进计划的这个经费，只能够采购有被这个教育部有选购的这个选购名单内的产品。那目前呢，其实我都有看到老师们在这个产品需求的时候，好，老师们有看到这个表单？这个表单呢，就其实是教育部他会发函给所有的老师，所有中小学的老师去填选说他们想要买的东西。然后会发给厂商，看厂商有没有要投标。那这些呢，就是老师们投稿进去说想要买的东西。那其中呢，会不会有没有看到 RazKids 跟 RazPlus？它没有被打勾，那其实是因为我们投件的时候呢，是用 package 的方式去投件的，所以其实老师虽然在这上面会，因为教育部会公告说，你们选的这些东西，这些有入选哦，很多老师看到这个部分，他可能就觉得没有被选到，但其实老师们在那个教育部的这个网站上去搜寻 RazPlus， 我们是有的，只是名字长得不一样。那为什么有这个问题呢？是因为我们是用这个 package 的模式，因为其实这个是最好可以协助到老师的。那还有一些细节相关的部分呢，我等一下也会说明。所以其实 RazPlus 也是有被选进去的。那再来就是呢，这个 RazKids 它其实本身就包含在 RazPlus 里面了。那 RazKids 呢，它就是刚刚 Jason 在介绍学生功能，你还记不记得，就是背景是蓝色的那个使用的时候，使用界面背景是蓝色的那一块是学生功能，学生功能就是所谓的 RazKids， 所以是有包含在里面的。所以其实RazPlus、RazKids 这些都是有被教育部所采购的，所以就是没有问题，我们可以透过这个经费来做采购。好，那就像刚刚就是为什么没有未入选购名单，那其实 RazPlus 跟 RazKids 都是有的。好，那要如何查询商品，直接打关键字就可以。那像刚刚讲到的，要了解产品的话，可以直接看网站上公开的内容，或者是直接联络我们，我们可以在线上做介绍，或者是可以到校跟老师们还有组长们做介绍也都可以。好，那是否只能选购就是单一产品或是名称一样之产品，并不是的，只要内容相符同即可。所以呢，就表示虽然说我们是列出的是这个 package 的，但是其实我们老师如果是采购 RazPlus 的话，其实内容是相同的。那这个采购单位等等呢，也都是确认没有错的，所以没有问题。 好，那再来呢，网站上可以找到什么功能？这个就是老师们像刚刚讲到，可以找到课前、课堂、课后所使用的不同年级、不同科目等等的。那这个的话呢，应该是采购部门会比较需要知道的，就是它的经费的部分，会如何使用，它的确会影响到采购产品等等。那大部分我们这些软体的话呢，就是属于是这个经常门，因为我们并不是硬体。好。再来就是选购名单，每年更新几次？每年更新几次及何时更新？每年的话，教育部会有2次的选购，然后呢，所以每年会更新2次的名单。那因为 RazPlus 跟 RazKids 我们在第1年就入选了，所以它并不会再更新进去名单，因为我们就不用再投件了，它就是已经入选到选购名单，老师可以直接采购。那每年会5月在9月的时候进行一波的更新，厂商的话大概是在3、4月跟7、8月的时候进行投件。那学校部分的话呢，依我这边知道，就会在比如说我们5月的时候，它公告了名单，学校部分的采购限期呢，大概就是公布名单之后的2个月，然后呢，像比如说9月这一波更新完了之后呢，教育部是基本上教育部的话，这个经费它会压在11月30号是最后可以申请这个经费的，所以在今年的11月30号之前，会需要把这个经费用掉，或者是申请掉，那就是会用5月或9月的名单来做这个采购都可以。好，那是否仅能向选购名单上的厂商购买？这个也是蛮多老师会询问到的问题，因为有些老师会担心，mangoSTEEMS 是这家选购的厂商，但是呢，我们这个县市的投标商是别的厂商的话怎么办？那其实呢，通常每个县市有不同的这个采购方法，有些县市是走学校自行找厂商的方式，所以学校可以自己来找我们，然后来用经费来采购。那有些县市呢是用统标的方式，就是会有一些投标厂商，他们会去投标，然后来服务学校。那通常这种投标厂商呢，他们在收到老师们的产品需求之后，就会来找我们，所以呢也是没有问题的。就是这些投标厂商也是会找到就是合法授权的我们这些代理商，然后来提供产品，所以呢采购来源正确性这些都没有问题。好。再来就是选购名单上面的这个品项的部分，有些名单上的内容它会包括一些教具包或硬体，那这个就是不太一样的。这个数位软体的精进计划，它的经费只能够购买软体，所以老师们如果有看到是有教材包等等的话，那就是不会在这个经费补助里面。那还好 RazPlus 跟 RazKids 这些都是软体而已，并没有这些教材包或者是实体书的，所以老师不用担心。好，那这些的话就是比较细节的部分，每年办理2次产品征求，那学校呢就是在2次产品的公开公告之后就可以选购。那基本上呢就是要特别注意这2个网站，我刚刚提到的这2个网站的公告，一个就是教育部数位内容与教学软体这个网站 sdc.org.tw 上面所有的最新消息，目前的最新消息还是在厂商的这个部分。好，那再来就是另外一个网站，就是这一个 plus.moe.edu.tw， 就是呢我们生生有平板的专案的网站，然后上面就有所有的相关的计划方案啊，或者是资料下载等等都会在这边。好，那在我开放提问之前，因为有些老师在报名的时候已经有先输入问题了。那有一个老师问到是说，就是除了数据推动以外，有没有什么是还有包括实体的这个观察的，可以推动学生那个练习英文的部分。那其实实体教室我们也有去做采访，然后也有追踪老师们的使用状况。实体的观察的状况呢，比较多是，其实学生们在使用过程中，我们看到对实体教室的帮助就是老师可以非常快速的知道学生正在做什么，老师不用像以前一样去说 学生拿了平板，然后不知道他是不是有在上课，或者是没有办法跟家长交代说，学生们在线上的时候是在做什么。因为就像刚刚 Jason 介绍的，我们所有的学生的使用报告、使用状况都会有这个立刻的数据的记录，老师在现场就可以透过您的后台直接看到学生们的使用状况了。所以您现在有一个教室的学生各自有各自的平板，但您在您的后台是可以及时的看到这些所有的数据的产出，这个是一个。那再来就是呢，实体课程实体教室的观察方面呢，再来就是学生们的这个互动率会更高。学生们在使用平板时，他们对教学内容的互动率其实是更高的，会比他的课本跟他用课本来做互动的比例是更高的。因为数位产品提供的就是一个即时性的反馈，学生不需要等到说举手，然后等老师走过来，或等老师看到他，或者是等老师解决了别的事情，别的在忙的事情再来回答他的问题。这个是数位产品它可以提供到的一个即时的反馈。好，那还有什么问题吗？那针对这些，就是针对产品的部分，或者是经费申请的部分，老师们还有什么问题吗？那如果都没有问题的话，那就交给周乙。
那如果有老师还想要询问任何问题的话，或者是您觉得就是还就是什么问题的话，也可以就是加入我们的官方 LINE， 或者是来关注我们的粉丝专页，就是可以在上面再和我们提问。那如果没有其他的问题的话，我们今天谢谢各位老师们的参与。那接下来呢，可能也会陆续举办其他不同的讲座。那如果老师们有想要知道有什么样的主题的话，也欢迎就是和我们分享你想要了解的一些相关主题。